Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for spending your valuable time with the Adapt 2030 channel. Arctic temperatures sweeping U.S. and Canada all the way down to Mexico, but look what is inbound. 4x normal rainfall, inundated. That's for a month. 62 Fahrenheit below zero. That's in Chicken, Alaska. Montana, 49 Fahrenheit below zero. Once in a generation. But the maximum temperature drop in a single hour record smashed as winds push 20-foot waves across the Great Lakes, piling up water on edge shores. Evacuations will be happening. 84 inches of water is going somewhere. Snow totals in the gusts. Heading toward New York City, icebound. Power outages, and a look from the dash cam. But the geese, they seem to be handling it just fine. And as they hear today, gone tomorrow. Oh, it was warming. Forget about that massive blizzard with daytime highs not reaching since the 1880s. The dip, the tongue. Rolling Stones would be happy with this Arctic tongue. Whiteout conditions, blowing winds, traffic snarled, traffic accidents. Particularly the dash cam here, state trooper picking this one up. I think I would stop also. It gives you an indication on how that storm originated. Look at this. Chicken, Alaska, 62 Fahrenheit below zero. Those are the same temperatures that were swinging across the U.S. Now, something of note here, Cheyenne, Wyoming. Maximum 1 hour temperature drop smashed all records. Now, we are going to split the hair here. This is a 24-hour period temperature drop, not a single hour. So if you go back to the most intense drop in temperature, that would be 1950, 59, and 2008 wraps up that third place with 61-degree drop in 24 hours. But as we swing over to 1:05 to 1:35 p.m., that's just barely 30 minutes, 40-degree drop. That broke the old record of 37 degrees in a single hour, and they were still dropping. It bottomed out eventually at 43 degrees. Official dumb coming from the Cheyenne airport. Look at that vertical drop. Day after tomorrow, temperature. Quickness is what you're looking at there. Don't want to admit it. Perhaps the Honga Tonga eruption in the year without a summer has something to do with this, and this is a preview. Also, other insane temperature drops, quote unquote. Amarillo, 30-degree drop in an hour. Denver, 37. Cheyenne, 43. Casper, 27 in 15 minutes. I don't know. I stayed out to experience the storm coming through, and it did get windy and dropped fast here in East Tennessee also. Deutsche Bank, Citi, and Morgan Stanley are all forecasting another 25% plunge in the stock market. The only break in inflation is with a recession. Rich Dad, Poor Dad author Robert Kiyosaki said, "I believe the economy is in the biggest bubble in history." Kiyosaki bought more gold, predicting $3,000 an ounce in a year. Call the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group has the no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold, and you may qualify for the no fee for life IRA. On qualifying rollovers, give them a call, 888-546-7020. Tell them Adapt 2030 sent you. And now on with the video. But what do I see here with the temperature anomaly? Crops. They hadn't gone into dormancy just yet. We're in these extreme bone-chilling temperatures, 50 degrees Fahrenheit below normal, as we hit right through the crop growing zones of the United States. And what am I talking about? That winter wheat. They were talking about severe damage, and I will agree. We're going to look at some serious crop losses, especially in the southeast U.S. where it had just emerged. There was only a few blades on it, and whack, it got hit with some of the coldest temperatures in 80 years here. And that does not portend well for crop pricing and food inflation in 2023. You look all around, there was already massive problems, supply chain disruptions, Europe going into a deindustrialization phase where all their chemical processing facilities closed. Therefore, less fertilizer, 40% out of Europe. Black Sea debacle, non-planting in Ukraine. I think they're going to plant about 20% of normal, if they could, coming up this next year, depending on how much detritus from the war is laying around that they can't plant around or have to remove out of the fields before they can till it. Honka Tonka eruption in southern hemisphere already just delaying and smashing the ability to grow food in the southern hemisphere. All eyes on Australia. Massive wetness wiped out the wheat crop east. They did get the harvest in, but now when they come into planting, they're looking at something like 10 degrees below the normal. So everywhere you look, and now we have this massive storm that just wiped out part of the U.S. food production. And you know where it's going to hit and be mainly centered is in the southeast U.S. Not used to those types of temperatures. And I was driving through a few of the fields where they put out winter wheat, spring wheat, and I'm like, ooh, they're going to have to possibly replant. The storm was ferocious, and it got down to 4 degrees Fahrenheit in East Tennessee. And those plants had not gone into dormancy yet, so looking at replanting, and food prices up and up. And if we look at the key facts off of the once-in-a-generation storm, Casper, Wyoming, all-time record low. Bozeman, Montana, daily record low. Lincoln, Montana, daily low. Wow, 49 degrees Fahrenheit below zero. That is chilly. And look at Malta, Montana. Wind speed record with wind chill, no less. Bringing it to an astounding 72 below zero. That is Antarctic equivalent there. Just note to self. And welcome to Flint, Michigan, far to the east of the extremes, but this is still what they were having to deal with. And wherever you look across the media, all these headlines, extreme cold breaks records, cold temperatures shattering records, breaking more records, trying to pick up on the NOAA feed to see exactly how many thousands and thousands and thousands of all-time cold records, and those broken are going to be tallied through the next days or so. Snowfall liquid ratio. This is an insane map. You can see where the wind is funneling through the bombogenesis as it's starting to spin a little bit northward. Just don't see maps like this normally. And accompanying all this heavy wind, what you would see 20-foot waves plus that light purple at the top of the range, 22 foot. That's massive. But here's something not a lot of people are thinking about. So these massive waves are being generated, and they're going from one end of the lake to the other. Doesn't matter if this is Lake Erie, if we're looking at the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, you'll see how the winds are driving all of the water into one specific shoreline. Now what's not talked about, but is now, evacuations where this water is now piling up. So for those of us in the U.S., 30 centimeters equals 1 foot. So at the top of the range here in Lake Erie, what do we see? 10 feet of what would be storm surge, and it truly is a storm surge, being backed up in one edge of the lake there. To the northeast, but then in the southwest, it's going low water. So it looks a little something like this. Observe water levels. This is in Toledo, Ohio. That water is being pulled away from that location, dropping from 572 feet down to 561 feet, 11 feet approximately. But then when we look at the inverse, where's that water level going up around Buffalo? Straight up. And it's going to continue to pile on. Starting around 571 feet up to 579, that's an 8-foot rise in water. So they are putting out evacuation orders, not exactly up to the minute on this like it should be. This is an ongoing event, and as we look, 84 inches has been moved across from Toledo elsewhere, and it's the lowest ever recorded. So this storm is something to behold. Power outages associated with this one, choose the state you like best, and there's going to be somebody without power. So here in East Tennessee, we're having these brownouts. Every 2 hours, they would cut the power for half an hour, and it was on a rotation. Once I figured out the schedule, then I could get ready. We had our generators, backups. I got extension cords running all through the hallways and things here. to the oil recirculating heater. So even if the power went off, those things still stay warm for another half hour or so. So to heat an individual room with that oil recirculating heater, no fire risk, and you can keep that latent heat a little bit longer in the home. But after about a half hour, it was kicking back on, luckily. But as we come into nighttime tonight, they're warning of more power outages on a rotational basis. Apparently 13 states are doing the same thing right now. So how are these geese handling it all? Well, it looks like they're doing pretty well. They're just going to tuck in and do what they do. Puff themselves up and wait for it to end. Speaking of waiting for it to end, New York City. Post-blizzard is where we're going to be looking at some temperatures that have not been seen in some time. Daily highs, New York City, coldest Christmas Eve in 150 years. 19 degrees Fahrenheit for the high for the day, which will bring it back to 1872, exactly 150 years prior. But unless you're looking local news for that, you won't find it. And back to Tennessee temperatures here. East Tennessee normally does not get this cold. So I'm saying these farmers around here are going to have to replant because of this prolonged and very steep temperature dip. Things are not going to go as nature planned. And if we look down at the southern Florida area, the striations in temperature are quite easy to see. These are going to be the lows for the night, dipping down into the mid 40s, but central there be way below freezing. Again, orange trees can handle that, but they've been heavily damaged after the hurricane. So any trees, plantations, etc., that are already stressed after that massive event of the hurricane, how well will they handle the cold is the question. And that cloud formation, bunching of clouds, you see that in cold weather temperature a lot, where you get that lineup of ice crystal formation in the clouds there, Gulf of Mexico below Louisiana. But setting it in motion, you can see how the bombogenesis continues to spin north. It's going to be up in the Canadian Maritimes as we get in through Christmas. And this is what they're looking at already. I've seen some pictures like this on Mars. Just put the orange behind it in the southern quadrant. They said it wasn't plants, but this exactly is plants covered in frost and ice. So what we're looking at is one of the coldest, fastest temperature drop events ever recorded. This is Arctic air, borderline touching into Antarctic temperatures. Now, if we have another one of these, plants will be much more ready to battle the cold because they're going to be in their hibernation phase. But another set of extremes inbound, West Coast, heads up on this one. That really light teal blue there is extremes above 125 millimeters. And as we look into the inch anomaly on that, comparatively, 4.5 to 5.5 inches where it's really light blue. You ready for 5.5 inches after freezing? Because storms like this haven't been seen since cathedrals with giant doorways that we can't replicate have been built. I appreciate you watching. Hope you got something out of the video. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. If this is the only time you watch the video, until then, this is truly a historic storm. And this would be more expected for two reasons. Heading into the grand solar minimum intensification. Solar cycle 25 is not nearly as strong as they said it would be. In addition, we have this year without a summer inbound as we speak. Remember, the Hunga Tonga eruption was in the southern hemisphere as we're going into the winter. If you follow the 1816 pattern, after the Tambora eruption in 1815, the subsequent crop losses and delayed plantings and frozen snowfall events into June were the following year, which would be 2023 planting season for North America. And also the Northern Hemisphere. Europe was down, so look for United States down as well. Asia could be affected, depends on how the monsoon flows in there. This is all pointing to food is going to be something that is going to change the society. So as you're looking for signs, this is one that 2023 is going to line up to be something exceptional in the availability for you to procure food for your families. And speaking of that, my Patriot Supply and Adapt 2030 3-month emergency food supply. Keep your family safe knowing you don't have to wander out into the chaos in an event of an emergency just like this blizzard and bombogenesis. Food with adapt2030.com. That link's in the description box below. Please join us every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight. Ransom Godwin and myself will be streaming over on Rumble on the Adapt 2030 channel and the Mini Ice Age Conversations YouTube channel, talking about these very same issues 2 hours at a time. Hope to see you there, and I will see you next video. Bye for now.